Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We're standing in the Go Forth exhibition, a joint exhibition with multimedia artist Teal Roberts Wilson and sculptor Wally. This exhibition is up through Friday, July 29th, so please come see it, and thank you so much to our generous sponsor, Summers More. This is a really exciting exhibition. It opened last Friday, and Teal sold over half of her pieces. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It was really well received. And I would love to just start by getting a feel for your material process.
Sure. So first and foremost, and kind of privately, because when you tell people you're a drawer, it doesn't sound impressive, but I think of myself as a drawer. Yeah. I love to draw. So I guess maybe an illustrator. So I mostly prepare panels, pieces of paper, whatever, in a way that I can then draw on top of it. I also have a printmaking background. So the way I think of a lot of my pieces are layers. So with here's another example. A lot of the places where you see a lot of black usually means that's an area that I started on, didn't like it, painted over the whole thing, and then I have a new surface to work on, and that's always exciting. So these pieces are a mix between pen on paper, paint on paper, enamel on paper, and then there's also one woodcut in the show that also has paint over it. And then I was trying to sort of get away from framing because having worked behind glass and in a frame, as an artist, it's hard to store. As someone who's purchasing, sometimes you don't want glare. So I was really trying to get out of my box. And that's when Wally and I had actually collaborated, and I grabbed some metal from his studio. And I found a process where I could actually adhere those pieces of paper to the metal, and that was really exciting for me. Yeah. Because I was very, very new.
So Wally is a sculptor, and most of his work is found metal. So this was a really cool way for you guys to collaborate and find a common thread.
Yes, he was super generous with his scrap pile stack. I felt very every time I pulled something out, I was like, but are you sure? This is awesome. He was like, you got it. So that was really, really fun for me.
So, I mean, this is a joint exhibition, but it's not necessarily made in collaboration per se. So how did you guys talk about it, and how did you sort of conceptualize it and think about this space together, if at all? Or did you just trust the process?
So we were paired before sort of knowing each other. And then we had emailed a little bit back and forth. Here's images of what I'm making. Here's some stuff of what I've made. And finally, it was just like, we got to get together, see some of this work together. So I grabbed a huge stack of all this works on paper, threw it in my car because I'm really abusive towards my art, and then went to his gorgeous studio, and we just started to look at things. He's so productive. He has so many versions of what he does that he was like, well, we could maybe work with this, and maybe I thought this would go well with your work. And so he was sort of able to pick and choose around me, which I felt very special. But, I think him seeing what I was working with, the colors I was using, mostly black and metallic, I think we were sort of able to come together on a process that he had already started, but he just continued forward in. And then I just kept working in the way I was.
Yeah, it's really exciting because the show is monochrome for the most part, but there's also this sort of sepia element that you find in your washes, and a sepia element that you find in the rusting metal and in the wood that's clearly been around for 60 plus years. Yeah. And even if it wasn't an intentional, making work with one another for this show, there's a beautiful connection with everything. Yeah. Amazing. Will you tell us a little bit about the motifs in your work? So horses are big.
Scorpions,
flowers, caution cones, orange.
So I was thinking about this just recently because I started making this work basically last November. So it's been sort of a explosion. And it was
November 2021.
Yeah, November 2021. So at that time I had just had a show of all My Little Pony work. Every single piece had a My Little Pony in it, if not 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. So that work felt very we were just coming out of the pandemic. I was going through some grief and loss from friends of mine, experiences that I was having, working in the restaurant industry, having like chaotic energy all the time. And I felt like the My Little Pony was really a stand-in for a like hopeful and pure and exciting. And it's funny because that was kind of a dark time. It was a difficult time. There was a lot of exciting things, but it was dark in a lot of ways. And then I look at this work, and this work seems dark and heavy and like, and I think about where my life is now, and it's like, the foreboding is much more obvious, but where I am in my life, I mean, I'm still experiencing life as it comes, but I have a lot more to be happy about. It's like almost if I were to write a list, it's like I've checked off all the things I want in a very short amount of time. It's like once I ask for something, almost instantaneously I'm getting it. And that's almost providing me with more worry. Yeah. And so I look at some of these works and it's like I see the garden, but I see the scorpion in the garden. I see the horses running across the landscape, but I see the storm coming. And that's sort of where I am. The traffic cones, I, for some reason, had cut them out and they were floating around my studio. And then I think they actually had to relate to a friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in a little over a decade, but her father tragically died in he was struck in the middle of the day by a drunk driver. And he was driving home from having like a wonderful day of golf with his daughter. He had just picked up food at the restaurant that they loved. Yeah. He had his dogs in the car. And it was like that turn on a dime of like how things can be so wonderful and go so tragically wrong. So it's funny because I work with these motifs and then they almost have like a premonition about them or a prophecy about them. But then if you think about it, everything we experience in life, it comes back around. It's just in a different disguise. So whether or not it's that motif is striking with me at the time, or I'll do something and then all of a sudden it makes sense because of something that happens later, that's pretty common too. But I think that mixture of like foreboding and celebration and delight, sort of back and forth.
Well, you've hit the dichotomy, you know, and it's really beautiful and you can see it throughout. I mean, even simple things like having, you know, the very common, well-known thank you from a thank you bag, but it's backwards, you know? This is a beautiful show. We're really happy to have you here, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.